Would you want to be a werewolf? Hi, I'm Nia. Welcome back to another video. Today we've got another reading journal video. Just keep in mind this will include some light spoilers. I'll be discussing the Shadow Beast Shifter series by Jaymin Eve. The main series contains 3 books, but there's 6 in total. The others follow other characters that are in the world. So let's get into it. The Shadow Beast Shifter series, books 1 through 3. The first book is Rejected, the second book is Reclaimed, and the third book is Reborn. And the audiobook narrators are Michelle Sparks and Noel Harrison. And then once again, the author's name is Jaymin Eve. This series follows Mera, an outcast werewolf who's grown up abused by her pack, who accidentally summons the Shadow Beast during her first shift after her 22nd birthday. She inadvertently releases a bunch of creatures from the Shadow Realm as well. The Shadow Beast is the creator of werewolves and whisks her away to his home in another dimension in order to investigate how Mera was able to summon him at all. They eventually form a pact. He'll help her figure out her strange dormant powers, and she'll help him get back into the Shadow Realm. The story takes place over 3 books, which also set up an extended paranormal universe with different dimensions and have werewolves, vampires, fae, angels, and so forth. There's also 3 standalones part of the series that each follow a side character from the initial series. Now, I haven't read the standalones yet, so I don't know what happens in those, so I won't be talking about them in this video. I also think the author has just started another series set in the fae dimension of this universe, so it is expanding. The books came out between 2021 and 2023. They're paranormal romance fantasy novels written for an adult demographic. It states in the summary that they're 18+. Some of the main themes explore rebirth, abuse, and it's kind of a coming-of-age story. Of course, it features some of your typical werewolf and paranormal tropes like immortals and magical creatures, the rejected mate trope, which starts the series off. There's portals to other worlds, and it's also a Beauty and the Beast retelling a little bit. Why'd I pick it up? I was looking for something to read, and when I saw the cover, it reminded me of the paranormal books I used to read in middle and high school. So I read the summary and it felt so nostalgic. It was so Wattpad coded. A girl shifts for the first time and gets rejected by the alpha, who happens to be her true mate, after being bullied by her pack since childhood. Gasp. That's basically the plot of every werewolf book series I read as a tween. I got the book immediately and started listening to it. Based on the cover, I knew it would probably be a little smutty. What made me wary was the level of smut. I don't mind some. On the pepper scale, I would say I'm good with a 1 or 2 peppers out of 5. I've been burned by books in the past that start out with a balanced plot, but then the romance completely takes over once the characters get together and basically nothing happens but chapters of gratuitous smut. I'm not bashing you if that's your cup of tea. Everyone has their hobbies and interests, whether it's fluff or smut. If there's no outside conflict, I get bored and I'm not gonna finish it. Anyway, based on my interpretation of the pepper scale, it was unclear where this series would fall. You can't always go off the first book because the main couple usually doesn't get together until the halfway point or at the end. So my interest was piqued, but like I said, I was wary. Also, after reading the summary, something else that worried me was the bullying aspect. I hate a bully romance trope with a deep passion. The summary says Mera's been tormented by her entire pack, which one could logically conclude includes the mate who rejects her for seemingly no reason. My worry was that there was going to be a relationship between Mera and this man who treated her horribly and then all of a sudden wants to be with her because they're so-called soulmates, which thankfully was not the case and is established pretty early on. The romance is between Mera and the Shadow Beast, and like I mentioned before, the first book is loosely based on the Beauty and Beast retelling. So now I'm going to talk about a few things I liked and a few things I didn't like about the series. What makes a good romance? Chemistry, banter, and conflict. Mera and Shadow are not an enemies to lovers trope, but they briefly tread the line in the first book after he kidnaps her in order to prevent her from accidentally releasing more shadow creatures. And I love an enemies to lovers dynamic because it successfully incorporates the chemistry even when they dislike each other. The attraction manifests as bickering and banter, and because things are usually set in a fantasy setting, there's all kinds of fun fight and action scenes that happen along with that. There's good banter and there's bad banter. Bad banter is forced. It's trying too hard to be clever and quirky, and it comes off stale and cringy. Bad cringy. Good banter can be cringy, but it's fun. It's snappy and it creates a clear image in your mind. It makes you giddy when you read it. There's plenty of regular dialogue, but there's also fun banter, so that's a plus. And no good romance can start if there isn't something impeding the characters being together. Preferably on multiple fronts, because it's boring when they don't get together just because. There needs to be high-stake reasons for the characters not to get together. If there's nothing impeding them, then they should just be together. How many times can I say get together back to back to back to back? The BS floundering of the will they won't they to pad the plot is ridiculous. Mera and Shadow despise each other in the beginning, then the trust they form is shattered at the end of book 1 when Mera discovers a secret that Shadow's been keeping, which drives them apart. But once they resolve that and get together, they're together. Which brings me to one of my dislikes. I felt the twist at the end of book 1 was weak. I was so confused by Mera's anger. It didn't make sense to me that she was angry he wanted to use her to open the door to the Shadow Realm. Maybe I missed something, but I thought she inferred that after discovering the existence of the door, and that his intentions extended beyond just sealing whatever rift she created that the shadow monsters were escaping through. If any of you read the book or have read the book and can clarify that, please let me know in the comments, because maybe this dislike is completely invalid and I just missed something, which can happen, you know? Don't get me wrong, I understand why Mera would be mad if she was completely unaware, but I feel like she had some idea about it, and it didn't feel like a big leap in logic to make for her. Ultimately, that issue is resolved and they get together. However, at the end of the second book, they get cursed with a memory spell and forget each other, but the whole plot gets resolved super quickly and there's almost no point for it, which is my second dislike. I like the idea of the memory spell and each of them retaining some memory of their feelings for each other, which helps them break the curse, but this entire conflict suddenly happens at the end of book 2 and gets resolved within a couple of chapters in book 3. It could almost be entirely removed and still have the same effect on the story if the spell was altered slightly, and instead of erasing everyone's memory, it just sent everyone back to their home dimensions and destroyed the portals instead. That's just my opinion. If you're unfamiliar with how I go about rating books, let me fill you in. I consider the writing style, the enjoyability, and my interest in continuing it once I've started. These aspects all involve each other and intertwine. Sometimes I'll take into consideration if a plot is extremely cliche or predictable, but on the whole, I don't have a problem with either of those things as long as they're executed well. When I read for leisure, I'm not deeply analyzing or critiquing an author's work, so when I talk about an author's writing style, the most I'm looking for is that it's well written and interesting, and this one was. I really liked the writing style, and I really liked the dialogue and the banter between not just the main characters, but all of the supporting cast as well. If I notice any stylistic choices specific to an author, I might mention that, but that's usually only if I've read multiple works by them. And even though I did read this series, I consider it one work, not multiple different works. If I read any other book series by this author, maybe I'll have a better grasp on certain things that she likes to do in her works. In terms of enjoyability and interest, it's simply how I feel when reading or listening to a book. I listened to the audiobook series and I had fun listening to it, and I was listening as much as I could and I was wanting to know what would happen next. I really enjoyed the series and it was an interesting experience. The audiobooks are narrated by two people. One for Mera, the female characters, the prose, and then the other one is for Shadow and all the male characters. There was this one really funny moment where it was basically the audiobook version of that Terry Crews Brooklyn Nine-Nine meme when he's wearing that sign that says he's like a 9-year-old kid, but instead it was a man with an incredibly deep voice saying lines of dialogue for like a 10-year-old kid, and it made me burst out laughing when I was listening to it because it was just ridiculous. If you're looking for something fun to read, I definitely recommend this series. I like the plot and the characters, and I definitely plan to read the standalones at some point, and maybe I'll check out the other series when the second book comes out. Let me know if you've read these books before, or if you're adding them to your TBR. And how do you like this style of video compared to the old style? I'm trying some things out and I'm open to some suggestions in the comments. You can check out some of my older reading journal videos, as well as my writing vlogs or my bullet journal videos. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!